What is going on out there, YouTube? John back again. As promised, I am back with a spotlight review for you guys this week. This week we are doing the brand new, fully restored 35th anniversary special edition of An American Werewolf in London. Alright, let's talk about the movie. This movie first came out in 1981. John Landis made this film. This was his very first horror film. It was actually based off an idea he had back in 1969. But after, so many years that he made movies, he just couldn't get this screenplay off the ground. But fortunately, after making Animal House and making The Blues Brothers, he finally got the clout in Hollywood to do the movie he always wanted. And, Polygram funded this film, and he was finally able to make it. It was released as a resounding success. Took over $30 million back in 1981, and that was a lot of money considering this was only a $10 million budget film. Went on to win the Academy Award, first ever Academy Award for Best Visual Effects. So, the story behind this movie, as many of you have probably already seen it, is two friends, Jack and David, are backpacking through Europe, and they are in England first time, and they go to East Proctor, where they walk into a bar that has a mysterious vibe about it. They see a 5-pointed pentagram on the wall, and then they ask questions about it, and then all of a sudden they're kicked out, and then, unfortunately, they are both attacked by a werewolf. Jack is killed, but David survives the attack, wakes up in a hospital the next morning, and gets released subsequently gets released. His buddy Jack comes back to haunt him as the undead and basically says, "You're going to be turning into a werewolf." And then, unfortunately, well, his undead friend was right. He does turn into a werewolf, and that's where I'm going to leave it from here on out because, I am not giving away too much because this movie is called An American Werewolf in London. The one thing I'll tell you right now, I absolutely adore the hell out of this movie. I actually caught it because of Michael Jackson's Thriller is the reason how I even know about this movie. I was a big fan of the Thriller album. I remember going to the library and getting, the making of Michael Jackson's Thriller. I used to get that tape all the time. But Michael Jackson always talked about how he saw An American Werewolf in London and how he loved the concept behind the movie, that it was like one of the first horror movies ever to interject comedy into it. Now, that of course is not the case. We have the old Abbott and Costello movies. We have Abbott and Costello Meet the Wolfman, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, and so on and so forth. But this was like the first actual gory horror film with some comedy elements. And Michael Jackson talked about how he loved it so much that he wanted to contact John Landis to do the Thriller music video and Rick Baker to do all the special makeup effects. And that's how I first heard about the movie. So naturally, me being a big Michael Jackson fan back in the early 90s, I went out to my video store and I rented this movie. And naturally, the second I saw it, I fell immediately in love with it. I've owned it, on countless formats ever since. I do have the Laserdisc back there, but I'm not going to pull that one out this time. I have actually 2 Laserdiscs of that, but for quickness sake, we're going to get this one nice and quick, because I know a lot of you guys want to know what this thing looks like. So let's get on to the picture quality here. So what does this movie look like? Well, back in 2009, I want to say, I'm not 100% sure, but let's just say 2009, they released this movie for the first time on Blu-ray as the Full Moon Edition. Now, that utilized a brand new transfer supervised by John Landis, and it had a whole bunch of new supplementary material, a brand new documentary on the making of the movie. Now, that Blu-ray, while it did look good, it did have its problems. The main issue was that they did use this. This was, it's hard to say it, but I have to say it this way. They did use a lot of DNR, digital noise reduction, on the film, but then they cranked up the sharpness just to give it that filmic look. The problem with that was that, the contrast was so high. It was hard to make out very fine detail. Like, you could see everything in the forefront okay, but everything in the background was so distorted, you could barely make out anything that was going on in the background. So Universal went back and fixed that mistake, and they went back to do this new, restored edition. This was done from a 6K scan of the original camera negative. So I guess what we're trying to say is, how good does this look? Long story short, it looks good. It looks a hell of a lot better than the Full Moon Edition, I can tell you that right now. You can actually see, things in the forefront are nice and clear. Things in the background, you can actually see them so much easier. It's just, the picture has been given brand new life with this restoration. The problem is, there is still some digital noise reduction at play. but it's nowhere near as bad as, let's say, the Predator Ultimate Hunter Edition, or nowhere near as bad as Near Dark. You can actually, during the nighttime scenes, if the DNR is turned up very high, you get to see a lot of streaking, like a ghosting effect. I'm happy to say I watched this thing twice over. I did not see any ghosting effects during the nighttime scenes. Everything looked really good. So even though there is digital noise reduction applied to this transfer, it was done with a very, very light hand. It was done with a very skilled hand. It was done in a good way and not necessarily a bad way. I would have loved to seen this with the original grain structure intact, but I'll take it as it is. It looks good for what it is. It looks a lot better than what we've had before. Now, unfortunately, on the audio forefront, we are left with the same exact DTS HD 5.1 track that we had on the last Blu-ray. While it sounds okay, it is still a very front-heavy mix. The surrounds are barely in use, and unfortunately, some sound effects have been re-looped, have been redone in post, and it doesn't have the original soundtrack. It's kind of like when the Terminator came out on Blu-ray and it used the altered soundtrack and they punched up some of the gunfire and everything a little bit. Unfortunately, this is what I hate to say. If you want to hear it the way it originally sounded, you either need to get your hands on the original Laserdisc from 1997 or 98 that came out on Live Entertainment, or you need to get your hands... I do not even know if the original first DVD had the mono soundtrack, so I can't say that for sure, but as far as I know, the original mono soundtrack is intact on the original Laserdisc from Live Entertainment. Onto the bonus material. Now, if you had the original Full Moon Edition, everything from that carried over to this. It has the Beware the Moon documentary. It has extended interviews with John Landis, members of the cast and crew. Has Rick Baker interviews. Has the commentary, which is why I've watched this movie twice. Has the commentary with David Naughton and Griffin Nunn, which is a very, very funny commentary. It's actually a really good listen, so I urge you guys to check it out. So, final thoughts on this release. Is this worth going to pick up? Yes, it is. Is this worth upgrading your Full Moon Edition if you already have it? Most definitely. Go pick it up. On sale right now at Best Buy. $10 is all it'll cost you. If you got the original Blu-ray, gift it to a friend. Don't use it as a coaster, like I said in the last video. Gift it to a friend who hasn't seen it. I did the same. I gave my Full Moon Edition to a friend of mine. I let him have it, just so I could get this new restored edition. And it does look very good, and I am very pleased with my purchase. So, hopefully next week we'll get another Blu-ray reviewing for you guys. I just got Blood Diner today. I was supposed to get Chopping Mall, but unfortunately they sent that to the wrong post office, so I will have that in Monday. So hopefully next weekend I can get a double feature Blu-ray reviewing for you guys. So, on that note, guys, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and as always, keep it spinning. Talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.